Hello, everyone, and welcome to this reaction video from Collider Games about the Xbox Games Showcase. My name is Dennis Zen, and I'm here with
What's up, guys? It's your boy Dorian.
Dorian with the brand new camera that we put,
Yeah,
that we
looking
put in
super
your
crisp.
place. It's funny because you went from the worst looking camera because you had like the super far away, super dark, looked like crap one to now the best looking one.
Yeah, it's like from the lowest to the highest of highest quality. Your boy,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's making me a little self-conscious because it's so goddamn crisp.
So, anyways, we're here to talk about and react to. We did one for the PlayStation 5 reveal event this morning, Xbox Series X. They called it the Xbox Showcase because actually a lot of these games are actually, I think all of these games are coming out on the regular Xbox One with just, an improved Xbox Series X. They start off with a Halo Infinite demo. I mean, I want to just give my overall thoughts of the event where the PlayStation event I thought was good but not great, a little underwhelming. I think the Xbox One was underwhelming fully. I
Hmm.
was expecting a whole lot more, and this is coming from Team Xbox, Xbox fanboy here. They start off with that Halo Infinite, and I was like, they did 10 minutes of gameplay, and right off the bat, I was like, you know what? This is underwhelming. I mean, it was slightly, better graphics. They had the grappling hook and everything, but there was nothing really that much to it. What were your thoughts? Because you kind of like more recently have gone to the Xbox team, but
Yeah.
you haven't
I,
had this long history with Xbox.
Yeah, so coming into it, I was like expecting a lot because we talked about it on the podcast, just saying like they need to really like bring it just to show what they can offer versus what PS5 is offering with their originals and things like that. So I was really excited for it, and I'm not gonna lie. So like the Halo, like you said, the Halo Infinite footage was a little bit underwhelming to me just because I just recently. So I don't know if you saw, but I just recently started playing Halo and Halo Reach with
Yeah.
Matt and Nick, and so I've been like playing that on the PC and the graphics on that just because they've like updated it, it looks fine, looks quality. So when I was comparing it to what I was seeing on the trailer, I was just like, just it looks slightly better, but I don't see like a game defining difference from what I've been playing with Halo Reach and the original Halo. So I was just like, I don't know, like I'll give it a chance, of course, because I'm loving what I'm going through now with
Yeah.
the original Halo games and the story itself. And it's also satisfying just getting to play with other people, even though it's not the OG split screen type of thing. You're
Yeah.
still getting to play with people. So I was just a little bit underwhelmed by that. Like the game footage looked great and all that, but I was the overall conference. I would want to say it was just I was whelmed. I don't want to say I was underwhelmed or overwhelmed. I was just whelmed. Like there was some stuff that interests me, and I was like,
Well,
that
yeah.
looks interesting. But then there were just other things I feel like they didn't need to put it in the showcase because if you look at Sony and when after their showcase, like if you look at their Twitter accounts and stuff, they'll casually just drop indie games and showcase like some upcoming games that are smaller that might not necessarily move the needle, but they'll still show it off on their social. I feel like they could have did that with a few of these games rather than like put them in the actual showcase. Because if we're being honest, I would have cut that by like 30 minutes. You could have put some of those smaller games just across the social media, and it would have done just as much of an impact, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the length was fine, even though, like I said, I mean, there are positive things about this event
Yeah.
and positive games and stuff we'll talk about. But I think, in general, it was like an hour long was fine. I remember the PlayStation ones for me was a bit too long. It was like an hour 15 or something. They were just kind of throwing a lot of the stuff in there. But yeah, overall, I think. I mean, let's talk about the games in general. A lot of it just didn't. They didn't look like they were for the next generation, right? There
Right.
wasn't like Xbox Series X. I mean, there were certain things they're like, okay, when you get an Xbox Series X, like certain game, like Gears 5, they'll have like a upgraded version you can play on there. They talked about like Ori and the Will of the Wisp running at 120 frames per second at 4K on that. Obviously that's not a 3D game; it's like a platformer. So these type of improvements, but in general, most of the games, and that was the thing with even with Halo. It's like, okay, that looks slightly better than what you're
Right.
getting on the Xbox One, but we're not seeing that huge leap here. And with PlayStation, they didn't have, as you know, we didn't see a new God of War, a new Uncharted or anything like that, but they did have the Spider-Man Miles Morales. That was the big one, right?
Hmm.
And they had a few other things in there where Xbox Series X, they had Halo Infinite, which wasn't like superly impressive. I don't think that 10-minute demo of him just fighting really was that the best showcase for them, even though it was technically a showcase.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think I would have rather them had introduced with something else because we already have seen a little bit of Halo Infinite. We already knew it was coming. Like with the PlayStation showcase, they surprised everyone with that, introducing it with the Miles Morales, a new game footage, and just showing us that. And it was just like, whoa, all right. They're jumping off early, so I wish they would have kind of done something like that and maybe save the Halo Infinite for the middle and just kind of because we already have they've been teasing it since the last E3 or their last showcase, so we already knew that was kind of coming in. I was fine with the footage, but I would have liked to have something else at the beginning to kind of just like really get you into it. Because once we started that, I feel like that set the precedent for the whole showcase of just like, okay, like, or it felt like they were warming up, trying to warm up as the event went along. Because by the end, once we got to some of those ending games like Fable and things like that, I was like, all right, this looks good. These are cool. But like throughout it, it just felt like lukewarm until we got like occasional things, and then it went back to being lukewarm, in my opinion.
Yeah, they had the State of Decay 3. They had Forza Motorsport. Like I said, Forza Motorsport is one of those games where it looks fantastic, but I'm just not interested in the rest of the game. The Rare game that they announced last year, Everwild, that was beautiful. That was the cell shaded animation. That was one of my highlights of the entire showcase. You have the Tell Me Why game. Like I said, Ori and the Will of the Wisp. The Outer Worlds DLC, Peril and Gorgon. I don't know. Is that going to be an exclusive DLC or it's coming out on September 9th? I would assume it's probably going to be for all platforms, just like the game was, even though Microsoft owns Obsidian now, just to maximize their profits. I thought maybe they would have hinted like a Outer Worlds 2 teaser or something like that, which they didn't. I'm assuming would be for next time. Grounded was also from Obsidian.
Honey, I Shrunk
the Kids type game. Looks interesting. Unless they can sell me on the story, I'm not really. One of the ones I was most interested in was Obsidian wanting. They teased out Avowed, which was
that looked nice.
The FPS RPG, basically like Skyrim. This is, if people don't know, Obsidian some of the people that work there, I think including the co-creators of the original Fallout. So obviously the Outer Worlds is their kind of, almost Fallout-like type game. Well, Avowed seems to be their Skyrim type game to that response, and so that's the one that got me very excited because it's a fantasy RPG from the Fallout co-creators, and also they mentioned that that's the game they told Microsoft after they were purchased, like that's the one they wanted to work on. So
and they got me. They tricked me because I thought they had a Sega logo pop up, and I was like, "Oh wait, we're getting a Sonic game real quick. We're about to get a Sonic game." And then I think it was a PSO, I believe, like
Phantasy Star Online too.
Yeah, it looked cool. Genesis. Like I'm not I haven't played it, but it looked cool. But I was really hoping it was a Sonic game. I was like, all right, that would be a cool exclusive to just have on the Xbox. Like, come on. And then they dropped a Tetris game. That looked cool, but it's just like that's another one. It's like, bro. I haven't even checked for Tetris in like years. Like they announced that there's going to be a movie soon with Taron Egerton. He's going to be playing some guy like the original owner. But besides that, like I don't know, that Tetris news was random as hell. But the one highlight, like the biggest highlight for me, the game I'm most looking forward to is probably the Medium. That dual reality gameplay type thing that really like interests me. I was like, all right, that looks pretty cool. Like I want to give that a try just to see what the story like, because at the beginning of it, I'm not gonna lie, when they just showed the female character, I was like, is this a Control part 2? Like it looked like it was going to be in the same type of universe or something like that. So I was excited to see what it was. But the story itself, it interests me, and the gameplay itself, I think that was my biggest highlight is that game.
Yeah. They had Double Fine with Psychonauts, which Microsoft recently purchased Double Fine. Ninja Theory, also they purchased Hellblade. I think the issue, this is a broader topic, but is that Microsoft bought all these studios kind of like late in the game, right? They should have bought them like maybe 2 years ago, and they bought them like at the end of last year, so now whatever they were working on, they're just going to pipeline it into Xbox versus like making something, even though some of these will be exclusive for Xbox, they weren't like made for Xbox Series X. That's, I think, the thing that we're missing the most. We didn't have, at least to my knowledge, we didn't have an Uncharted, Last of Us, God of War. We now have Ghosts of Tsushima. Like, we don't have any of those. Spider-Man. We don't have any of those games, and that's why those rumors about Microsoft interested in buying WB Interactive are interesting, because if they were to get them, you're talking about Mortal Kombat, Batman.
And in the pre-show, we were watching. Jeff Neely had a batarang in the background. I was like, "Oh, is he are they teasing like Batman's about to get a game?" And throughout this, so I was kind of like in the back of my mind, just hoping maybe that was a subliminal message. But no, we didn't get any type of superhero type games. Another one that did interest me, though, that I'm very gonna cautiously optimistic about is the Gunk. Like, at first when they teased it, I was like, I don't know about this. But once we saw a little bit of the gameplay, I was like, all right, this looks like this is another one I'm willing to really give a chance. It looked pretty interesting.
They had showed Jack Black sing a song for Psych. The next
another highlight.
Destiny 2 is going to be on Game Pass, Xbox Series X. I think that's the one positive thing that they came out of this. Well, the biggest positive, I think, in my opinion, is that the Game Pass is really an awesome deal, and they're just making it better, because they basically said every game you're seeing here will be on Game Pass, quote unquote, for not free, but I mean you can play as many as you want of these games. So you're talking about, Halo, you're talking about, Everwild, you're talking about, Avowed in the future. So basically they're throwing all their eggs in one basket, which is this Game Pass, which is you subscribe to this thing for whatever, $10 to $15 a month, and you can play all their exclusives. And then, they're going to start gearing towards like a streaming only service, I think, in the future, not in this generation, but possibly the next generation. What Google Stadia is trying to do, except for maybe with a little more behind it. There's just, there were some good games. A lot of the games were just like these games that have their fan bases, excluding Halo, because Halo is a big system seller. Excluding Halo, a lot of them are like these, hardcore people like this game, right? But they aren't these big system sellers. So I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, because we went to E3 last year. A lot of these games, like at E3, when they were doing a presentation or something, they would take the time and like space out the big reveals, like come out on stage and talk to people before like a big reveal, and then while they were trying to get ready in the background, then they would put on the littler screens like the smaller games, the games that people are like you said, have those niche fan bases that they still want to get popularized and maybe bring some new audiences. That's what a lot of these games felt like, is those type of smaller games that you're just like putting in between the big reveals. But since we're all at home, and since they don't have they did do like people introducing different things, but it just felt like it was all just one continuous, here are all these niche games, and then bigger reveals, and then niche.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Microsoft, and probably Sony as well, but probably more so Microsoft, will have a lot to show next year. The problem is both the consoles are launching this holiday season. I think Microsoft, they're saying November. I don't think that's confirmed, but I think the rumors are November. I would assume PlayStation will be around the same time, maybe a little bit after. Neither one are blinking on price or launch date. I think price is much more important than launch date. No one really cares. Like, if Xbox launches 2 weeks to a month earlier than PS4, that's not going to stop someone from getting a PS5. They're going to be like, oh man, Xbox launches a whole month earlier. I can't wait, so I'm going to buy an Xbox first. No, not really. I think price is much more of a factor. I'll be honest with you. Even though PlayStation has, I thought, the better presentation with their showcase, neither system right now is really like, other than I'd say like Spider-Man Miles Morales, nothing's really like going, I have to get this console right now so I can play this exclusive game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like I'm always going to be team. I'm now that we're entering these new phases. I gotta wait. I can't claim I'm
Yeah.
team Sony or team Xbox yet. I gotta see what they're offering. Like right now, if I had to pick one, just only have a certain budget, I have to pick one. I'm most likely probably going with the PS5 just because of like you said, the Miles Morales game. That was a big deal. I think that was one of the biggest reveals. And although it's like in the same vein as like the Lost Legacy, where it's not going to be as like story like the game's not going to be as long as like a regular game. That's still enough for me to jump onto it because in my mind, like after the game itself, you got a customizable PS5. Like I know it's going to be fire. You get a customizable controller. Like I'm already thinking about the bigger picture with the Miles Morales game in its future. But just alone from these two showcases that we saw, I would have to go. I would think I would pick a PS5. And I know later on this year they have like a part two to this showcase to show off the rest of the studio. So maybe they're just holding all the bigger reveals for that once they like maybe that's when we'll get a Batman reveal or something like that down the line when they have finalized all the deals or something like that. Maybe we'll get more story driven games and more like we have a compared to like a Uncharted or something like that because I saw some people in the chat like calling like the State of Decay 3 like, oh, they're trying to do The Last of Us 2 or whatever. It's like, no, I don't think they were trying to do that.
That franchise has been there for a long time.
Yeah. So I don't think they were trying to do that. I just would like not something in the same vein, but like I want a lengthy story with a main character that we can root behind and that can build his way up to become one of the iconic characters that Xbox needs. Because I was talking about it with the Collider Games people. It was like, what if Xbox right now were to put together like their equivalent of a Smash or the PlayStation All Stars type of game, what would their roster be like? How many people would you be able to put in there where everybody would be like, oh, I know that character? Like, so they need to start building that roster for the next generation to like actually have a set group of iconic characters that you can just be like, all right, this is our squad. This is the defining cast of like the Xbox generation moving forward or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So, and someone who has only bought PlayStations later in the cycle, I've always bought Xbox first. This may be the first time I buy a PlayStation first, but I'm still holding out judgment if there is a second showcase or whatever. I'm leaning towards PlayStation right now, but we'll see price plus if there's any more news about. It's not that there aren't games I want to play on the Xbox. I obviously do. One game, Cross X, I forgot to mention Cross X. It's a Remedy and Smilegate. Remedy who did Control, Max Payne, and Alan Wake. It's like it was that Spec Ops Tom Clancy looking.
Oh
game.
yeah, okay, yeah.
That one looked pretty cool. But like I said, no huge system sellers on there. I was expecting more. I was expecting some like brand new property you've never heard of before, but looks, AAA titles. So yeah. Any last thoughts about this showcase?
No, I mean like I said, I was just whelmed by it. I thought there were some interesting things like the medium and the games you mentioned, just overall that drove my interest, but they weren't like necessarily like, oh, I need to have the Xbox Series X to get those games. Like I could see myself playing pretty much all of these games on my Xbox One. Like I don't see anything that makes me want to go out and pay more money just so I can play these games on just a slightly high, not slightly higher, but like a higher quality. Like I think there wasn't really anything that really moved the needle for me, in my opinion. Like Halo, I'm excited about just because now I'm really jumping into the story and the mythos around it and all that. But just overall, I'm hoping, just cautiously holding out and saying that their showcase later in the year is what they're going to really like closer to the actual reveal date. They'll drop those bigger bombs to really entice people to get it instead of because I think right now they were just hopefully just showing like some of the stuff to get people excited. But then once the reveal date comes later on, then they'll drop those bigger bombs to like try to get that edge over PS5, I think. So I'm hoping, just trying to be cautiously optimistic. Hopefully they have more to offer.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about this more later, and then on our podcast tomorrow. All right, Dorian, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Dorian Parks and Rec. You can find me on Instagram at Dorian Parks, and you can find me here on Collider Games all the time.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, Instagram Dennis.tzng. Also subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Collider Videos. Also on our podcast feed, that's the Collider Factory podcast feed, where we have our games podcast every single week. We also put our interviews on the podcast and on the games channel. And we'll be updating and talking about a lot more news in the coming months. All right. See you guys later.